Chapter 18 of the Boy Scouts' First Campfire. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Boy Scouts' First Campfire by Herbert Carter. Chapter 18. The Alarm. Davy's words created no end of excitement in the camp of the Boy Scouts. Every fellow jumped to his feet, and several immediately stepped out so that they could get a better view of the dark lake. The stars shone brightly and gleamed on the tiny wavelets that purled along toward the beach close by. Knowing where the distant island lay, they could manage to locate it by the inky blur that seemed to settle upon the water at this one particular spot. But if anyone expected to see lanterns moving to and fro like animated fireflies, they made a sad mistake. It remained as dark as the inside of a pocket over there. "Oh, come, what sort of talk were you giving us, Davy?" remarked Step-Hen in disgust. "I was mighty comfortable lying on my blanket, and you just thought you'd see how you could stir us up with some fake news." "I tell you I did see it," affirmed David stoutly. "Say, I know what he glimpsed," remarked Bumpus. "What was it then?" asked Step-Hen. "That star hanging low over yonder," the fat boy went on eagerly. "If a fellow saw it all of a sudden, he might think it moved. And it does look like a lantern now, it sure does." "Think everybody is a booby like, well, some people, do you, Bumpus?" demanded Davy indignantly. "What I saw waved back and forward, just like I might do if I wanted to make a signal to somebody over here on the mainland." "Thad, you believe me, don't you?" Before the scout leader could answer, another took up the argument. "Boys," said Smithy, "what Davy Jones says is perfectly correct, because I myself saw some sort of moving light. I just happened to turn my head, for perhaps Davy said something right then, and it was out there over the dark water." "There, what do you think of that, Smarty?" demanded Davy, turning on Step-Hen and Bumpus, who were on the same side for once, and about the only time the others could remember. "It goes," said Thad positively. "What Davy told us has now been proven by a second reliable witness. Then there must have been some sort of light moving over there on the island. If a light, then a human being, either boy or man. And that makes me all the more anxious to look that same island over again. I didn't get to cover all the ground when we were there last." "But there wasn't any cabin or hut there," Bob White declared. "I don't believe there could be one, and none of us sight it. Still, it's a rocky island, you remember, and there might be some sort of cave on it, good enough to be used to keep a man from the rain, or housing goods if need be." "Whew! Listen to Thad, would you?" said Step-Hen, drawing a big breath, which betrayed his state of mind, and the excitement that was beginning to make his pulses thrill. "Whatever do you suppose these unknown men can be doing around here?" "You remember what I said before about this country having been stocked with game, and this lake with thousands of young bass years back," Thad continued. "It is possible that some of the late game keepers have a neat little plan to make a pile of money out of their knowledge. And as the law would punish them if they were caught, perhaps they're hiding while we're in camp so close by." "That sounds good enough for me," remarked Giraffe, taking advantage of Thad's attention being diverted to softly toss another pine knot upon the fire. "Perhaps it's worse than that," Step-Hen remarked, in a half-awed voice. "I've been reading a lot lately about some convicts that broke out of a penitentiary up in the next county. Maybe now some of 'em have located here, and are living off the game they snare in the woods, or the fish they hook." "That might be, of course, though I doubt it," Thad went on to remark. "In the first place, if they were convicts, they'd be wearing heavy brogans, such as are always used in prisons. One of these men had on a neat pair of pointed shoes, for I saw the marks clearly. The other shoes were pieced. I pointed that out to Bob White, didn't I, Bob?" "It's just like you say, sir," replied the other readily, "and you showed me how I could tell that shoe again any time, and under any conditions, for it had a homemade patch on the sole, running criss-cross from side to side, and he made the figure with his finger in the earth beside him. Davy Jones had left the fire again to go back to the lake shore, and so did not happen to hear this explanation. He seemed to be hoping another glimpse of the moving lantern would be granted to him. There was something so weird and fascinating about the mystery that Davy wished it to keep up. "How about our moving the camp over on the island tomorrow? Have you changed your mind about that, Mr. Scoutmaster?" asked Allan. "Yes, I was just hanging in the balance when this new thing happened and settled it for me," replied Thad. "Then we don't go?" asked Step-Hen, guessing the way things were moving from the expression he saw on the other's face. "It would hardly pay us," answered Thad. "In the first place, we're nicely fixed where we are. Then again, if that island should be a harboring place for hobos or some other rough men, we'd soon get into trouble with them. I don't think many of us would enjoy sound sleep if we camped over there. It would mean sentry duty every night, just like we were soldiers." The boys had voted in one way to go over, and no one would have liked to show the white feather. But this decision on the part of their scoutmaster let them down easy, as Step-Hen afterwards confessed. And they all seemed to look pleased over the decision, even Davy, who came in just in time to hear the last words Thad spoke, having seen no further sign of a lantern. But perhaps there was one who remained silent, and looked glum when it was thus decided to remain in the old camp. Giraffe dropped his head, so that his comrades might not see how disappointed he felt over the change of plans, for he had hoped that the bear would be set at liberty when the last scout took passage for the new island camp, and that the beast would start off hunting food in the woods after the fashion of bears in general. Now they faced a panic in the food department, Giraffe feared, for he seemed to be certain that some night that beast would break loose from his chain and devour everything they had in the line of provisions. "Who goes over with you tomorrow, Thad?" asked Davy, hoping that he might be the favored one, for Davy loved adventure, and could never get too much of the same, he believed. "Well, I hope he don't choose you for one, Davy," said Step-Hen jealously. "Why not?" demanded Davy, showing resentment at once. "Because you might have one of your fits in the boat, and upset the whole outfit," Step-Hen went on with a grin. "You know, when we wanted you to help clean up the camp yesterday, you said you were afraid of exerting yourself too much, because you felt the signs that always came along before you got one of them terrible cramps." Davy looked a little confused. Deep down in his own heart, he knew that he had been playing a little game of shirk about that time, and taking what was a mean advantage of the good nature of his fellow scouts, and now was coming back to make him pay the penalty. So he said not another word. "I haven't decided yet who I want to take," remarked Thad, looking around at the circle of eager faces upon which the light of the glowing campfire shone. "And perhaps the fairest way will be to draw lots. Then the lucky one will not be of my picking, and there can be no bad feeling." Bumpus had been sitting there for some time now, taking things easy. He certainly enjoyed remaining quiet as well as anyone in the patrol, which, considering his weight, was not to be wondered at. Some thought must have struck him just about that time, for he was observed to struggle to his knees with many a grunt, and then, gaining his feet, vanish within the nearest tent. Nobody was paying any particular attention to the fat youth, however, unless it might have been Step-Hen, who turned his head to see what was going on. And even he joined in the laugh when Davy Jones performed one of his comical antics, jumping up and hanging from the lower limb of a tree by his toes, so that he swung to and fro like a big pendulum. "Better be careful, sir, how you play that trick if you ever go down with me into the Blue Ridge country," laughed Bob White. "Why, would they arrest me for cruelty to animals?" demanded Davy, as he made a flying leap, turned completely over in the air, and landed ever so lightly on his feet, as neatly as a circus gymnast might have done. "No, but if some of the darkies were passing through the woods, sir, and saw you hanging like that, they'd positively think it was the biggest possum that ever was grown in North Carolina. And you'd hear an axe at the butt of that tree in a jiffy, believe me." Just then Bumpus came staggering out of the tent, having tripped as usual over a guy rope in his hurry. He scrambled to his feet, and although nearly out of breath, managed to grasp, "Well, there's thieves broke loose in this same camp, fellows, or else the place is just bewitched, that's what." "You'll have to explain what you mean, Bumpus," declared Thad, while Step-Hen half started from his seat on a blanket, his face becoming scarlet, as if he expected that every eye would immediately be turned in his direction. "I tell you, I hung it right on the pole in the middle of the tent, and now it's clean gone. Yes, I even hunted around on the ground and everywhere, but nary a sign did I see. Things have come to a pretty pass, I think, when a fellow just ain't allowed to leave his haversack around without somebody running off with the same. Like to know what the rules would say about that sort of thing. Thad, is this going to keep up right along? It's downright robbery, that's my opinion. And I don't care who knows it. Oh, my goodness gracious, there they come now, walking right in on us." From the way Bumpus spoke, one would think he meant the thieves were descending on the camp to complete its looting. And as the boys scrambled to their feet, no wonder they were thrilled to see two shadowy figures of men advancing from the direction of the dense forest. End of chapter 18.